heavenly ideas, the higher truths, deep and profound spiritual concepts and that's the up above, as above. Those are the spiritual concepts that we have been studying with our earthly, worldly experiences. That's the below part of being in the world. We are in the world. We're being in the world. So that our earthly, worldly experiences then, with all the dust and debris and grime and stuff that covers it up, they can be transmuted with these higher truths. So that's what we've been marrying, because this whole month has been about marrying ourself, smaller s, we talked about it last week, with the higher s, with ourself. So combining our heavenly self, which is our divinity, with that human self that we live here. So today's talk is called Never Forgive Again. And I think that's a pretty provocative kind of title. And I bet it piqued a lot of people's interest, right? Because I know a lot of people feel, don't be talking to me about forgiveness. There are just some things that are completely unforgivable, right? So the idea of never forgiving anyone again would seem pretty good. I like that one. Well, I'm afraid to tell you this morning, you're not off the hook. It's just a different way of approaching it, okay? Because what we really know is that deep within our beingness is that if we believe we have come here to express the fullness of God in physical manifestation, which we do in this science of mind, which we do, and if you believe that you are an incarnated spirit of the divine, which you are, and which we believe, absolutely, and if you really are willing to connect the divinity within you with your earthly experiences, then this is the place that we truly want to actually live from. This place of combining the two, marrying, if you will, the two. And to actually express our true nature while we're going through some of these things that can feel hurtful, that we might feel anger and resentment and blame and all of these kinds of things, and just knowing at the same time there is that divinity within us, which is peace, which is love, as I said in the beginning. So just like it's not possible to look at the front window and the back at the same time. It's not possible to walk up the ladder and down the ladder at the same time. And it's not possible to travel north and south at the same time. We cannot be an expression of love. We cannot be an expression of love and carry always those feelings of hurt, of anger, of resentment, of blame in our hearts. It's impossible to do that. It just can't happen, but we know this. We know this. Well, at least we're deepening into it. We're deepening into knowing that we can't hold love and we can't hold blame and fear at the same time in our hearts. Impossible. So I want you to know that if you are willing, just that little bit of willingness is all we need here. That's all I'm asking for this morning anyway. That little bit of willingness to open your minds and your hearts this morning to a new as above perspective of forgiveness. Look at it a little different way. So are you willing to look beyond what the human eye can see? Really? I'm asking you, are you willing? Yes. Okay. Just want to know. Are you willing to move into that place of marrying heaven and hell at the same time? Well, it feels like hell sometimes. Are you? Yes. Good. Because today we're going to explore a powerful practice that, when applied in a regular and consistent way in this earthly experience, it may take us to a heavenly place, or at least a place of peace, at least a place of relief. Sometimes when we reach for that relief, it's enough just to get us to the next higher vibration. So we breathe in that relief sometimes. But if you're in a pretty peaceful place, then we move up the ladder then of higher frequency. We move up. And what we're going to talk about this morning is forgiveness, but not in the traditional or even the spiritual sense, which I'm going to go over. We're going to define both of those, but the practice called radical forgiveness. And most of us know radical forgiveness. I've been teaching a class that I based on that Colin Tipping book since 2002. I know Carol's been with me just about the whole time. Right now, Rev Patty Augustino is teaching that class. But it's a very powerful, powerful concept, and it's changed countless lives. Just this whole concept of this, we'll see why it's radical in a moment. So what is radical forgiveness in a nutshell? And then we might even have a couple of books for sale. I don't know. We pretty much sold out. We have a couple of books that'll be at the book table. Really amazing. Well, everything occurs in our lives. This is radical forgiveness. Everything that we might have an opportunity to awaken to our spiritual truth and live from our divine nature. When we look at it from this higher perspective, that there really is nothing to be forgiven. When we get to that place, that's pretty radical. There really is nothing to be forgiven because we believe that everything happens for a reason. And if that reason is there to support us in our spiritual growth, in our evolution, then we are really blessed. We're really expanding our consciousness. Radical forgiveness is designed to break the chains of victimhood and move us into a place of empowerment. And we can only really be in a place of empowerment when we let go, we release all of those concepts of blame, of anger, of doubt that we perceive onto every situation. Holds us back from expressing our good, holds us back. So in the introduction, I want to read this to you, of Colin Tipping's book. He writes, "My main intention in writing this book was to make clear the distinction between forgiveness that maintains a victim archetype and that frees us from it. Radical forgiveness challenges us to fundamentally shift our perception of the world and our interpretation of what happens to us so we can stop being victims. I recognize that the ideas presented here may be extremely challenging for someone," he writes. "Someone who has been severely victimized and is still carrying around a lot of pain. I ask only that you read this book with an open mind and see whether or not you feel better after reading it." And so this morning I'm asking that you just be a little willing to be open to the concept of radical forgiveness, of opening your mind and your heart. Just a little willing, that's all we need. All the universe needs to supply you with its good, with its love, is that little bit of willingness. So that's what we're asking, a little bit of willingness. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the ideas behind radical forgiveness and to give you some groundwork for what it really is. I'm not going to give you the worksheets or any of that stuff. That's for the class, where you can download them from his website, radicalforgiveness.com. Amazing. Those worksheets are amazing. But really, talk is cheap. We can all say pretty nice words. So it's the action. It's the action. The act of shifting our perspective. That's what brings about the healing. Are we doing the work? So I want to begin by giving you 4 important assumptions behind the concept of radical forgiveness. And the first is exactly in line with our monthly theme, and it is. This is the first one of his. Vibrationally, we live in 2 worlds simultaneously. The world of divine truth or spirit, and the world of humanity. And as Colin Tipping refers to them, he says that once we awaken, we can comfortably live in both. And I do believe that that's true because I've done that. Mm-hmm. As you're going through stuff, that's what the spirituality is so powerful for, because as you're going through these things in life, this stuff in life, We can hold on to the place of knowing there is the divine power that is for us, that is right at the center of our being, is our essence, our core, our eternal true self. Just knowing that, that's having one foot in the spiritual and one foot in the human. Because we're having a human experience, right? Second assumption, life is not random. It provides for the purposeful unfoldment of a divine plan, with opportunities to make choices and decisions in every moment, always divinely guided when we're aware by our higher selves. Divinely guided by our heart. So let's explore that for a moment. What is meant by our own divine plan anyway? We use all of these phrases, but it's good to get the concept, understand it. So what is that? Some preordained set of conditions? No, our own divine plan is for us, is to awaken to our divinity, to become aware that we are powerful co-creators of our universal life, of this life, and that we don't have to remain in victim consciousness. That's the divine plan, to recognize the divinity within us. And Holmes writes in his Science of Mind textbook, until we awake to the fact that we are one in nature with God, we shall not find the way of life. You will not be able to truly live life to its fullest. And it's not just New Thought teachings. According to Rabbi David Cooper in his book, God is Verb, I don't know if you read it, one of the primary texts of the Kabbalah cries out to humankind. This is in his book, and we're doing Kabbalah today, so I thought it was pretty good. He writes, you beings on earth who are in deep slumber, awaken. It pleads with us. Stop sleeping. Wake up. What are you waiting for? Which is what Stephen talks about when he does his class. It's about awakening to this higher self within us. So your divine plan, my divine plan, our divine plan is to wake up and allow the divinity within us to uniquely unfold, because each and every one of us has a unique self. No one else has it. There is no one else like us on this planet, and I think that's pretty powerful. Remember, God does not repeat itself. Doesn't have to. Limitless. Third assumption, at the soul level, we get precisely what we need in our lives to support that awakening. How we judge what we get determines whether we experience life as painful, which is like, of the earthly experience, or as joyful, which is of the heavenly experience. We get to choose that. And the fourth is that through the law of resonance, which is basically the law of attraction, we attract people into our lives who resonate with our issues. That's the fun part. I'm so glad that I became aware a while ago and just released those magnificent teachers who really gave me a run for my money. I really, it's that resonance. You pull in. If your issue is abandonment, you're going to pull in, especially in close relationships, people who will eventually abandon you. And if it's abuse, if your issue is abuse, you're going to subconsciously, I'm not saying you consciously go looking for this, but you're going to pull those people into your life so that you can then become aware if you wake up. If you don't wake up, you stay in that sleep with that situation and have a miserable life. So, like I said, really, it's your choice. It's your choice. So, I'm going to say it real briefly, the four assumptions. So first one is vibrationally, we live in heaven and earth simultaneously, and we can learn to live in both. Second is, we are each on a path to awaken to our own divinity. That's the divine plan. Third, everything in our experience is supported by our awakening. So as we awaken, we are supported. Just know that. Spirit, God, infinite intelligence supports you. Always. Always. Trust, faith, knowing. And the fourth is we attract into our lives people and conditions that resonate with areas in our life where we are maybe asleep. Might wake us up. I've been woken up. Have you not been woken up sometimes? Now, what the heck is going on here? Okay, so it's for us to, when we become aware, then we can really check that out and we can see how it resonates within us and take responsibility for our responses, our choices, our reactions in the situation. So how is radical forgiveness different from traditional forgiveness? Or as I put it a moment ago, as spiritual forgiveness. We got three kinds here. So traditional forgiveness is, you're a complete jerk, but I forgive you. Okay? We go to therapy for many years. Sorry for all the therapists in the room. We go for therapy for many years to learn, with our opinion, you're a complete jerk, but I forgive you. Spiritual forgiveness is, you're a complete jerk, but I forgive you, because if I don't forgive you, I'll block the flow of good from actually unfolding in my life. So I must forgive you spiritually so I can be in alignment with my spiritual self, but you're still wrong and you're still a jerk. So, radical forgiveness, this is what makes it so radical, is, wow, maybe you're not such a jerk at all. In fact, I realized that my soul called you into my experience so that I could awaken more fully to my divinity.
Right.
Sometimes you gotta breathe on that one. That's why Carol and I were in that class since 2002, right? Still being
Somebody said repeat that one.
Oh yeah, repeat it. So we can fully experience and awaken up to our own divinity, the divine plan. So in terms of our capacity to evolve spiritually, radical forgiveness offers extraordinary potential to transform consciousness. And this potential far exceeds what is possible with traditional forgiveness, or even what I'm calling spiritual forgiveness. Maybe I'm not really a jerk. Maybe it's my issue. Maybe there's something in me, especially if you find that this is a pattern in your life, and it's like a different person, a different situation, same feelings. So I completely get, however, that we still live in the world of humanity. We still live here. And at certain times, there are times when we simply will not be able to see the situation from that perspective. There are times. So when we find ourselves immersed in deep pain over a situation, it is virtually impossible for us to move into radical forgiveness at that point. It's virtually impossible. When we have recently experienced harm at the hand of another, we can't be part of this whole unfolding of the divine plan when we're in the middle, when we're right in the middle. It's not even post-traumatic, it's traumatic stress. When we're in the middle of traumatic stress. So it would be really heartless and cold of us to remind someone else they're out of alignment with good. It would be cruel at that point. So there's a compassion that we hold also. But here's a deep and profound truth. If we stay enmeshed, though, if we stay enmeshed in those wounds, we remain a victim for all of our lives. That's the part, that's why it's very important to feel the feelings, and he has that on the worksheet, to absolutely feel the feelings, to be in the feelings, but not to stay in them for the rest of our lives. Because when we stay in we ruin our own lives, because we become the abuser to ourselves. It's self-abuse, actually. So, I'm going to skip over this story. It's about the Indian ritual. Turn that back 3 times.
Might be good. That is good.
So the Indians then, they have a tradition, I'll make the shorter version, and they allow a person to come into their circle and tell their story 3 times. They leave after each time, They're allowed 3 times to tell their story with all the emotions, being the victim, feeling the feelings. But on the 4th time when they come into the circle, they all turn their backs. Because that's enough. We've heard you, we have compassion for you, but that's it. So it's that way with us. How many times do we... Got to find someone else to hear this story, because this is a really good story. This is what they did to me. The minute you hear "did to me," you're in victim consciousness. So that's why you need a prayer partner or someone that's going to know the spiritual truth and call you on it, because they don't want to hear the victim consciousness. But it's okay to be in it for a little while and then to move on. So I'm going to give you, before I give you the 4 steps, I invite you. I'm going to give you 4 steps of radical forgiveness. So I invite you to think of someone or a situation in your heart, somewhere where you're maybe carrying some hurt, some pain, resentment, anger, any of those things. You might not have one, but if you do, just hold it. And you know that when you think of that person or that situation, and they can walk through your mind unharmed, that you fully healed. If they can't walk through your mind unharmed, there's still some forgiveness to do. Everyone have something? Good, so we're going to apply the 4 steps. And this is, if you have the book, this is from chapter 22. Step 1, look what I created. This first step reminds us that we are creators of our reality. We are creators of our... However, it is imperative also to remember that we create circumstances for our own awakening. So do not assume guilt for what happens. I talk about spiritual guilt, that sometimes people in the spiritual kind of teaching carry around. Look what I didn't align with God properly. So they make everything worse by spiritually blaming themselves for being out of alignment. It's a terrible, or saying, I must be a terrible metaphysician. And this is a trap that we can, and the ego just pulls us into this trap. So please, please, don't fall into that trap, and do not ever allow another by saying to them, well, you're really out of alignment today. I see all this stuff you're doing. It just makes everything worse. Okay? So as we awaken, right? As we awaken to our divinity while we're going through, and this too shall pass, remember that. This too shall pass, the situation shall pass, but that divine nature is strong within, supporting you, guiding you, loving you. Step 2, notice judgments and love yourself for having them. We all have judgments. We all have judgments. This step acknowledges that when we are being in this world, we automatically attach a whole string of judgments, of interpretations, and beliefs to situations. That's what we do. Our task involves then accepting these aspects of our own humanity and loving ourselves for having them. Loving ourselves anyway, including the one that might be saying to you, you are spiritually bereft for creating this reality. Loving even the judging part of us. It's okay. It's the love that heals. It's the loving ourselves that heals always. Doing this connects us with what is actually happening in our body and our minds, and bringing ourselves into the present through our feelings. Loving ourselves. Last week we did a little thing at the end, like a little ceremony of loving ourselves. We repeated it. We made a vow to love ourselves. We repeated it out loud. So our energy shifts quickly when we move to the place where we can just let go. Say, really, I of myself can do nothing. Release, surrender, that's letting go. And once you do let go, then you let God. God can't get through those blocks of resentment and anger. Step 3, I am willing to see something bigger going on than just the surface situation. So the stuff is going on, but there's something else going on all around, underneath, and through it. It's perfectly natural that It's a perfectly natural thing that everything out there is what we feel is our reality. But maybe there's a whole lot of something else going on underneath the out there experience. Maybe there's something else going on. But our task is to go beyond the five senses, because the five senses will not take us to that what is going on. They'll just take us to all of the outer stuff. You got to use the faculties that we all have been endowed with. Sean talks about, I'll have to do a talk on faculties. Using our faculties, which is a higher realm of observing and feeling and understanding what's going on. Step 3 says, I'm willing to explore the possibility that beneath all drama, something of a more spiritual nature is happening. As I said before, same people, same events, but a whole different meaning. I am willing, that willingness to consider that this might be an opportunity for my own healing. So being willing expands all possibilities for us, and that's what radical forgiveness is about. Its purpose lies in seeing the truth behind all apparent situations. And you need not fully understand, because most of the time we do not understand why or what this thing that's going on. It's just the acceptance and the knowing that this is all unfolding. Things don't happen randomly. This is all happening for my highest good. The willingness to see a situation differently is the key. The willingness to take a broader view is the essential step of radical forgiveness. And it equates to prayerful surrender. And it really is all letting go, taking the breath. I of myself can do nothing. It's the divine within, the God within. And to use, the fourth one is, I choose the power of peace. Got to go to peace. And you can't get to peace unless you do forgiveness, by the way. You got to let go of all the blocks. Can't get to peace if you're holding resentment. So this fourth step represents a consequence of the other three. And it is by accepting the divine purpose served in the situation that we choose to feel peace. By just accepting what is going on and still be at peace. And to use the power of peace in whatever actions might be required. To just follow that inner guidance. The power of peace is found when we are fully present in the moment, acting with clarity and focus. So we do whatever is necessary to get to that place of peace. So, real quick, with less talk from me for sure, I'm going to go over those four steps again. Step 1, look what I created. Look what I created. Step 2, notice your judgments around them and accept and love yourself. Step 3, be willing to see that something bigger is going on more than just the surface situation. And step 4, make this a moment where you choose peace. And so this morning, we have taken a higher view. We've already done the work right here, but just by being in this atmosphere of radical forgiveness. We've already started this whole idea of forgiveness right now, realizing from the highest viewpoint that there's nothing really to forgive when you really get down to it. And then I think, like people that are just getting ready to depart their physical and have the next experience, are they in anger, resentment? Some are. But when you hear people, oh, they went in peace, they went on to the next, they've realized how important was it to be angry and blameful? How important was it to be right when you're moving on to your next experience, leaving the physical behind? Just a thought. So once we've reached the mountaintop, we can't go back as far down the valley as we once were. That's something to remember. And this, right now, I feel is an energy of reaching, attempting to reach that mountaintop by letting go, letting God, and living life in peace. So,